And all right, awesome, Christian. Howdy. Where are you
Well,
coming in from today?
yeah, I'm actually out of Gilbert, Arizona, still in the area, but wasn't able to make it out to the conference today.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you so much for bringing this talk to us. We had so much chatter in the chat for this one. It was,
Great
a lot of
discussion.
people, yeah, a lot of people really excited about the topic. Oh, hold on. YouTube wanted to talk to us. But yeah, so I gathered a few questions from the chat, and then also I have some of my own. But something that Pudge mentioned was when starting a threat hunt, do you start with the actor in mind, or do you try to find activity? Or does it depend, I guess?
Yeah, that's a great question. Are you looking for very specific behavior, or can you take an adversary and kind of start with that? I love that idea of starting with an adversary. My favorite hunts are actually my favorite idea is to actually go at it from a campaign perspective. So, taking a campaign that's out there and wrapping those up because that will give you a lot of different ways to you can kind of scatter across your environment to look to try and identify an attack or a successful compromise. But I like the idea of starting with an adversary, particularly because you can choose adversaries that you may already know are targeting your sector or organizations that are similar to your own. So that gives you a huge advantage because you can't, we have a limited amount of time that we're actually able to take this intelligence and perform that analysis. So being able to prioritize it with intelligence like an adversary that's a great way to start. Now you will eventually bring it down to some individual pieces of behavior and individual activities that you're looking for, but being able to start with a list of several that you want to hunt for based off of what an adversary will typically do is a great start, great way to approach it.
Yeah, and I imagine that, like, even that slide you posted at the end of all those various, like, zip file created in temp directory, etc. So there's so many detections that can actually lead you towards what threat actor you're dealing with,
Yeah,
because you're sort of stumbling upon their own techniques.
Yeah, another awesome benefit of the MITRE framework, being able to take a lot of those, we often talk about trying to profile an adversary in our environment. If you actually find an event and you're trying to maybe look at what adversaries have those sorts of TTPs, that's something that MITRE and a lot of other threat intel researchers already do, try and map those techniques to adversaries. So you could potentially, even end up going the other way around and having an idea of what type of or an idea of what adversary might be you might be looking at.
Yeah, and another thing I really loved about your talk was the regular inclusion of definitions. I just, especially with threat hunting, it reminded of me of a conversation with a colleague where I was like, well, I kind of built this, like, in my head. It's a threat hunting queue because it's like it's the kind of searches you would use to look
Yeah,
for
right,
obscure things. But he was like, no, 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 threat hunting is manual. And I was like, yeah, but I'm using the search you would manually use,
right.
um, but
Yeah,
not creating an alert out of it.
yeah, it's kind of funny, but it's not something you ever really need to be. I don't want to be dogmatic about, or there's an extent where maybe it's not helpful, but I do really think that just clarifying terms can be really helpful because like in the example that I gave, if your boss comes to you or if you're hired for a position and they say threat hunt and you have a different idea of what that means than whoever's asking you to do it, or if you're on a team that's where there's multiple people threat hunting, um, you know, we might be communicating different ideas. So I think it's helpful to maybe pick a helpful phrase or helpful definition to kind of work with as we dig into the topic.
Yeah, especially, yeah, there's just so many different teams and so many arms of the security organization that, like, it's just making sure people are on the same page. So when you do the work, it is all aligned and works well together.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
Another one I'm curious that also from Pudge. Pudge, thank you for the great questions. Was I agree that being proactive is critical to the purpose of conducting a threat hunt, but I'm curious on why you are separating the use of automation. Would you mind expanding?
Yes, I love that question because with some of my with some of the hunts I posted, again it comes down to semantics, but with some of the things I posted, you might notice that I am leveraging and leaning on trying to automate a lot of manual work and using automation to filter out the data, to summarize the data, to parse out the data, and to put as much of that out of the way as you can is definitely something that's going to aid a threat hunter. And I think that's, as you're maturing, the outputs of your hunts can actually feed back into any sort of automated searches or queries, like you mentioned, that you can actually tune that for next time. And you can run, I love the idea of running searches at night and collecting this data, and then being able to come at it and just review it. And I love all that. The particular thought I was trying to communicate there was, with the SOC, security operations in general, and I'll say traditional SOC, we do want to keep pushing towards, and a lot of the detections that come out of our security controls can and maybe should be automated, and we should be pumping them into a SOAR, or often these products have, automated integrations themselves. But the idea with when we're looking at threat hunting, a lot of times we're going to be looking at very large, sometimes large reports. If you're looking for all the places like shadow copy is a great example, one of them that I gave. If you're looking at programs that modify that, you don't want to just necessarily go ahead and, if a search returns a result and there's a process that's augmenting the shadow copy, prevent that or delete that or contain the host, because there can be legitimate use cases for that. And so I think with this idea that we're no longer just trying to find out what's malicious or benign, but we're trying to delineate between an admin and our adversary, which is often trying to look like the admin. It is going to take, at this point, there is still a heavy reliance on human analysis of the data that's returned. And so that's, I think, the delineation I was trying to point out there. But that was a
Yeah,
great
sure. You
question.
you don't wanna mess up that particular automation. Like, there's some things that are important to, things running in a corporate network that if you break, could go very badly.
Yes, yes.
Um, awesome. I'm glad we had some time for some questions. I personally was interested. You mentioned sort of doing social media threat hunting in the chat, and I was
Yes.
curious sort of what lessons from your talk came from that experience.
Yeah, that was actually a new endeavor for me actually this summer. With the Tokyo Olympics, I had an opportunity, and I was first exposed to SMTH and social media threat hunting. And I think there was also great conversation about this idea of external threat hunting. And again, semantics can vary, especially I'll note from sector to sector. I've learned over the time. Um, but I think this idea that we're looking at events or some threat intelligence out there and kind of hunting those and enumerating those with threat intelligence, I think that's lending itself to what we were discussing in terms of external threat hunting, whereas maybe the delineation for internal threat huntings, we're relying on an organization's internal logs, and we're trying to actually follow up process IDs and map things out and understand comprehensively what's going on there. But in terms of this external threat hunting, or just threat hunting term as it's applied to social media, there's a lot of great tools that were mentioned. I shared a few. Twitter Deck gives you the capacity to be able to follow a lot of different trends, tags, or strings, and look for those. In the Cyber Resiliency Institute, we use this for sports events like the Olympics to be able to follow all the relations all the things that are relating to that. And the use cases differ far greater than cybersecurity, just in terms of we were looking for compromise with cyber threat hunting, and in that case, that also included like physical threats that needed to be escalated to the authorities of a particular sporting event. Or another big one is taking advantage of people who maybe were looking to get access to streams without paying for it, and a lot of those were malicious, and anyone who went to try and take advantage of those. In fact, actually, there were also some that proposed to sell tickets or to sell access, and they were also completely malicious and fictitious as well. So it included kind of all those things. And then we also have a few sites that we were kind of using as honeypots. They were hosting content, and we were able to see attacks that were being thrown at organizations related to, or partnered with, I should say, the Olympics in this case, or your own company in other cases, looking for domain squatting type activities is another good use case, and there's actually products and vendors who have solutions for social media threat hunting as it relates to an organization, and looking at things that as it could relate to your own domain. But there's a whole another talk there and a whole another topic that I am actually still excited to be learning about and still getting into myself. But
Well, great. Well, we would love to have you come back next year and present that talk.
yeah, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure. I'm
Y-
grateful for the opportunity to share with others, and hopefully, and really hopeful that other people have gotten something out of this and can take it and run with it. And
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks again, Christian. And yeah, enjoy the rest of your day and hopefully see you again next year.
thank you very much. Have a good
All
one.
right. Have a good one. Bye.